Hi everyone, welcome back to Farrand Film, and today I am bringing you my end of year awards for 2024. We are technically, as we record this, into 2025, but what a way to look back on the year it has been, with all the films that I've seen and everything that I enjoyed, and even some little bits that I didn't quite enjoy as much as everybody else did. Now, I've not seen everything, so if there are any omissions, any glaring things on your list that you're thinking, why has he not put that in there? Why has he not done that? That'll be the reason why I've probably not seen it, or I might have seen it and just not enjoyed it as much as you did. And one note that has to happen every year, and it's quite frustrating that it has to happen every year, because I live in the UK, I'm going off UK release dates. There are a couple of films that are mentioned in this video and were heavily mentioned earlier in my mid-year video that I did in July or June, were they were technically 2023 releases, but they got released in the UK in 2024. So that means that I had to sort of consider them on this list. It's frustrating that it happens. In the same way that today, as I record this, Nosferatu has opened in UK cinemas. It was a Christmas Day release in the US. So anything that from that I might want to pull out, same with We Live in Time, same with Nickel Boys, all of that is going to end up on the 2025 awards. So some of these might be a bit outdated, or you might think they're a bit outdated, but again, it probably means that we got them in January or February of this year, because for some reason that still happens. Anyway, let's get into the awards. So, most overrated film. We're going to get the sort of negativity out of the way. Everything else is pretty celebratory, but I was umming and ahhing about doing a bottom 5 films of the year and a top 5 films of the year. Now, I might do that in a sort of shortened version that could go up on like an Instagram or like YouTube Reels or something, or YouTube Shorts, because I know that people quite like them. Because there are definitely 5 films that I would consider to be the worst films of the year. Borderlands, cough. But these are the ones that I went to go and see, and some of them not necessarily that I didn't like them. I just feel like people hyped them up even more than probably was needed or wanted or actually it deserved. And then there were some that I just didn't enjoy, and for some reason they're getting plaudits left, right, and centre. So the first one is Gladiator 2. Now, I didn't mind Gladiator 2. I thought it was okay. But I have seen people falling about all over it, saying it's fantastic. There was even one point where it looked like it was going to be front runner for picture and director, probably before its release. Denzel Washington seems to have fallen out of the supporting actor competition. I don't think he's in my field. I think I was toying with the idea of putting him in there, but I really don't think this is going to be Denzel's year as much as people thought it was going to be. And looks like that's going to err towards Kieran Culkin for a real pain. So Gladiator 2, I saw the TV glow. Nothing disappointed me as much as finally getting round to watching. I saw the TV glow as recently as about last week, thinking, oh, that's one of the big ones that I've not seen from 2024, so I better make sure that I watch it. And then thinking, what on earth is going on? What were everyone talking about? I didn't enjoy that as much as everybody else did. Kneecap, another recent watch for me. Something that, if I'm honest, I don't think I ever would have actually got round to if it not for one of my students in my film studies class suggesting that we watch it on one of the final lessons of the year. And we watched it, and I thought, not for me, not for me at all, and I just don't think it's much good. Terrifier 3. Now, this one this one stems more from the pop culture reaction around it, in that Art the Clown has become a behemoth in terms of an icon of cinema. That everyone's recognising the mask, everyone's sort of loving it. It didn't have the charm of the first one. The second one didn't have the charm of the first one. It didn't have the same bigger, wider story beats as the second one. And I feel like it just got to a point where it was just over long, and we were just moving between kill to kill to kill, and there wasn't really anything there. And I just didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the other two. And finally, the zone of interest. Now, before people come at me for the zone of interest, I understand that it is talking about a subject that is still like fresh to people, and still sort of obviously historically prevalent and all that kind of stuff. It's nothing against that. I just felt as a film, it was much more of a metaphor of, oh, let's talk about this thing, and more of a bit of an art house piece. I think there was a lot of stuff that if you took out of it, a lot of lingering shots, which I know people love, I know people like, but just for me, it wasn't for me. I just thought it didn't deserve the Oscar buzz that it got. That's it for me. If I'm awarding this to anyone, I'm awarding this to Terrifier 3. Mainly because I think people still put it on a pedestal. I think people are still putting Art the Clown on a pedestal. And Terrifier 3 was that thing of, just because you got more money to make the film doesn't mean that you have to do everything that you did with it. My hope is that when we get to Terrifier 4, that it's going to have a much more Army of Darkness feel, because I kind of got that from the end of the film. But my pick for most overrated of 2024 is Terrifier 3. Best Supporting Actor. Now, what I've done for these ones, where I mention these in the mid-year awards sort of update, is that I've thrown the winner of those across the bottom of the screen, just to sort of bear in mind, and mainly to sort of pinpoint to me, that's how I gave it to in the mid-year video. So, also nominated in the mid-year video, Josh O'Connor for Challenges. Now, Mike Feist, apologies Mike, hasn't made it in to this end of year category because of a film that I saw recently that have knocked a couple of things out. More on that in just a little bit. Vagnamora, who was also in the mid-year video for Civil War. I recently rewatched Civil War, and his performance and Kirsten Dunst's performance and Kylie Speeney's performance, it's an absolutely incredible film, and one of my favourites of the year, as we will get to throughout this video. Carlos Diaz for Conclave. Now, Conclave is the film that I was talking about that I saw recently and sort of changed things. I made this, and let's just throw it out there and sort of, call a spade a spade. I made this PowerPoint presentation that you're currently watching a couple of days before I was planning on recording it, and before I'd seen Conclave. And then I saw Conclave, and things changed. Now, initially, I was thinking, well, if I like it, and I like the performances in it, Stanley Tucci is the person who probably is more than likely going to get in for supporting actor for Conclave. But as the film progressed, and as you find out more about Cardinal Benitez, Carlos Diaz's performance, especially with it being his first feature film role, is stunning. And I think that people not speaking about him in terms of awards contention and speaking of Stanley Tucci instead are misguided. So I threw Carlos Diaz in here for that reason. The winner of the mid-year award, Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers. I was so happy we got nominated for the Oscar. And again, I know that The Holdovers is a 2023 release technically, but we got it in the UK in January. And finally, Harris Dickinson for The Iron Claw. Again, so the four, Josh O'Connor, Vagnamora, Dominic Sessa, Harris Dickinson, were all in the mid-year review. The only thing that has changed is Carlos Diaz for Conclave. Now, at that point, my gut would sort of go, right, well, it's between Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers because he beat out Josh O'Connor, Vagnamora, and Harris Dickinson in the mid-year, and Carlos Diaz. So at that point, I'm not going to let recency bias sort of mask me. I'm still giving this to Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers. I think it was an amazing performance, especially from such a young actor. And it was up there with Paul Giamatti's performance and Divine Joy Randall's performance, if you ask me. So I am giving this award, this Best Supporting Actor of 2024, to Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers. On to music now. What I like to do in music is I'm combining the score that was created for the film, as well as any original songs that were made for the film, as well as any pop culture soundtrack songs that are already existing that have been also used in the film. So it's a bit of an amalgamation of everything. And the mid-year winner was Challenges for that beautiful Trent Reznor Atticus Ross score. So let's see where we get to here. So once again, Challenges is still in here, so I'm defending its crown, if you will. Civil War, De La Soul on the soundtrack, a lot of other songs on there that have made my playlist and made my sort of heavy rotation. Dune Part 2 for Hans Zimmer's score. There's a lot of controversy around Hans Zimmer's score at the minute and its eligibility for the Oscars because it reused some of the stuff from Dune Part 1, but of course it is. But we'll get over that. Right here, right now, this is the Ghost concert film. So if you're familiar with the band Ghost, pretty much a sort of run through of their greatest hits in a concert film style. And Wicked, the film adaptation of the film Wicked, which I enjoyed much more than I thought I was going to. Now, if you were to ask me in a month or so's time, would I get bored of Defying Gravity? Yes, I would, because Ruby is currently all over it. And as I record this, I've already had to promise her that we will do a Wicked review on Saturday after it has come to the sort of premium rental, and we can watch it again. But in terms of this, and again, this isn't going to be the sort of the tone for the rest of the video, so please don't think that it is. Challengers still has this. I'm not just sort of going to throw these nominations up and just keep giving it back to whoever it was that got it mid-year. That's not the case at all. It just happens to be coincidental that Dominic Sessa retained the Best Supporting Actor, and here Challengers retains the music. I've not heard a better score this year from anything, and it's stunning. Challengers is a great film. Underrated now. Now, this is the stuff that I like to talk about. This is the stuff where I'm that kind of person who, when I go and see a film and I really, really like it, and it's not getting the attention and it's not getting the reaction that I think it deserves, I like to try and champion it a little bit, and I like to try and, sort of fly the flag for it a little bit. And these are 5 films that I feel this year were overlooked, were put down upon, people were sniffy about, and just undeservedly so. So, number 1, Abigail. Absolutely loved Abigail. The ballerina vampire film. Here all day for it. Those aren't onions. Quoted myself. Absolutely loved it. Adored it. Loved it. Blink Twice. The Zoe Kravitz film starring Channing Tatum and Naomi Ackie. I thought it was great. It was a sort of Get Out-esque psychological thriller. It didn't do overly well at the box office. Not many people still seem to be talking about it, but it surprised me massively when I saw it. And again, it was just one of them that I just thought people haven't spoke about this film enough. Late Night with the Devil, again, another one that had a small release, had a release in the sort of festival period in 2023 at this point, and then made its way to things like Shudder and stuff like that. But it was a really effective horror film using that sort of 70s style talk show, and the central performance by David Dastmalchian, which we'll get to later, is superb. One, again, that I really enjoyed. The Fall Guy, one that I thought was good. It was a really good film, and it comedically, it's there as well. There's a lot of action set pieces in it. Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, what's not to like about their partnership and watching them on screen? But again, I think people were a little bit sniffy about it, and it seems to be fallen by the wayside in terms of people's lists at the end of the year. It was a really decent film. And finally, The Iron Claw. Now, The Iron Claw is one of my favourite films of this year, or 2023, however it is that you want to look at it. And it had its plaudits, and it had those people sort of at the end of the year saying, oh, this is one of the best films of the year. This is one of Zac Efron's best performances of the year. I think I'm purely putting it in here because it didn't get any Oscars love, and it didn't get any sort of major awards consideration and love. So that's why I've thrown it in underrated. I'm not going to say that it is my pick for the most underrated film, because my pick for the most underrated film is Abigail. I think so many people are overlooking it. I think so many people saw it as that sort of random mid-year horror film where, people will go and see it just because it's a horror film. But actually, I think it's really entertaining. There's some solid performances in there. And it's that great balance of really funny comedy and quite horrific action in a horror film. So my pick for underrated is Abigail. Into supporting actress. Now, the mid-year winner was Kaylee Speeney for Civil War. So let's see where we are with this one. So, Tori Wong for Bleeding. Now, Bleeding was a film that not many people will have seen. It was screened at Grimfest this year, and I'm including it mainly, even though it didn't get a full theatrical release in the UK or even in the US at this point, I'm including it because I saw it this year. Now, it might be that when it does get a full theatrical release, I sort of reconsider it and put it in a list at that point. But for now, it's a 2024 release for me, because I saw it this year. And Tori Wong plays a sort of... I don't want to use the word vampire because the film doesn't use the word vampire. But she plays a character who is strife with issues in a relationship that she ends up being involved in, and sort of characters that end up going her way for a little bit of assistance. I'm trying to skirt around things because I don't necessarily want to spoil it, because it's a fantastic film, and something that I'm really hoping when it does get a full release, again, I can sort of get behind and champion. My full review is on the channel, as well as my interview with the cast and the crew, of which Tori was included. And I thought it was a really stellar performance. That's why I've included Tori in this one. Kaylee Speeney is there once again for Civil War, defending her crown, if you will. Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, again another late entry for this one, being as I just saw Conclave the other day, but Isabella Rossellini's character is fantastic and her performance is fantastic. It's quite understated, and she has quite a few powerful moments in the film where she sort of has to speak up against the popes and against the sort of the cardinals, and basically against the men in the film. Divine John Randolph for the holdovers, again one that's kind of again held over from mid-year. She won the Oscar, great performance, and Margaret Qualley for The Substance. Now, I enjoyed The Substance to a point. I didn't enjoy it as much as other people did. It very nearly made my overrated list, but I thought at that point I was being harsh because actually it's that film where even though I've ended up putting it like middle of the ground, I had a lot of admiration for the script. I had a lot of admiration for Margaret Qualley's performance, a lot of admiration for Demi Moore's performance, a lot of admiration for Dennis Quaid's performance. But I think it went a little bit too far with where it ends up going. So ultimately, that sort of pips it down for me. I sort of fell away from it a little bit. This is a tough one because immediately my head turns to Kaylee Speeney. Because it is a stunning performance. As is Isabella Rossellini. As is Margaret Qualley for The Substance. As is Tori Wong for Bleeding. As is Divine John Randolph for The Holdovers. Maybe I should have thought about this before I came on and started doing this video. I'm gonna stick put. I'm gonna stick it to. I'm gonna keep it with Kaylee Speeney for Civil War. It was a very nuanced performance, and she managed to be naive and innocent in that performance. And then if you were to go and watch something like a Priscilla, or to go and watch something like Alien Romulus, you'll see a very different side of the actress. So I'm gonna Civil War. Kaylee Speeney, Civil War. Kaylee Speeney. Screenplay. Mid-year winner Justin Kurtzkis, I'm terrible at pronunciations, for Challengers. So Andrew Bell for Bleeding. Now, Andrew Bell's script for Bleeding was one of my favourite things about it. The idea that you're purposely not going to call vampires, and that you're going to discuss things like people being addicted to blood, and that's where that's coming from, and its derivative of dust. So I really, really enjoyed the script. I thought the script was really powerful. Again, Kaczynski's in there defending the crown for Challengers. Alex Garland for Civil War, another fantastically strong script. Peter Straughan for The Conclave. Again, like, that script was just stunning. And David Hemmingson for The Holdovers. Now, if I'm being totally honest, I'm moving Civil War out of the way. I'm moving The Holdovers out of the way. Thinking about Challengers, I'm thinking about Conclave, I'm thinking about Bleeding. Now, one of my favourite things in Challengers is the reoccurring motif, is the Chekhov's gun, is the callback to something that you've seen before that immediately gets the audience thinking. And I'm specifically thinking about the ball and the tennis racket. I'm not going to say anything more on that. Conclave is so nuanced in the way that it layers different things, and that you're following Ray Fiennes' character around, and he's finding things out about all these supposed candidates for Pope for the papacy, and it's twists and it's turns and it's all that kind of stuff. It's stuff that I love. I'm giving it to Andrew Bell for Bleeding. Now, this stems more off how innovative the script was, that it gave a fresh take on a genre, on a subgenre, on a character, I suppose, if you can call a vampire a character, that for me blew me away. And I found it really, really inspiring, because it was an independent film, or it is an independent film, but B, really, really interesting, and really, really something again to champion. So screenplay I'm giving to Andrew Bell for Bleeding. Now, at the halfway point, just before we get to the sort of other awards, and I'm assuming you can figure it out that there'll be like film and director and actor and all that kind of stuff. But one thing just to sort of plug, and I've put a link for this in the description below. So I am this January doing Move for Mind. So this is where I am doing 31 minutes of activity every day in January in aid of Mind, the mental health charity. It's something that's close to my heart. It's something that I've been dealing with. There are people in my family that I know that are dealing with it greatly. People that I know that deal with it every day. Every day can be a fight. Every day can be a surprise when it comes to mental health. And on the screen, which I'll very quickly sort of take you through. And if you're not on the podcast, I'll read through for you now. You're not on the YouTube channel even. So mental health, where do I even start? So this is a personal story from me. I had my first major mental health issue 10 years ago. In January 2015, I found myself in a job that I assumed was the goal. That I assumed it was the thing that I was working towards. And it very quickly became clear that it was too much too soon. I heaved myself awake. I physically shook at the thought of what I was doing the next day until it came down to fight or flight, and I flew. I couldn't stay in that situation, so I left. The last 10 years, it hasn't been an isolated thing. It's not just been something that's landed in that thing. There's been peaks, there's been troughs, there's been everything in between. I've had the highest of highs. Some of the stuff that I've done in the past 10 years. I've become a dad in the past 10 years. I've become a husband in the past 10 years. I've been able to see my favourite wrestlers win championships in the past 10 years. I've been able to make so many new friends and do so many amazing things. But I have had the lowest of lows as well. I have had days where I've just felt that I've questioned the worthiness of it. I'm still manoeuvring those trials and those tribulations while trying to advocate to everybody, to not just my family, but also my friends and my students, that they can do it. That they need to do everything that they can to alleviate their own troubles and their own struggles and their own issues. And sometimes I feel like I am a bit more of a voice of reason for people, more so than I am to myself. So this challenge is an opportunity for me to raise money for a great cause, do something that I've been successful at in the past in terms of like fundraising, because I've done stuff like this for Diabetes UK and for the Royal British Legion when I did some walking challenges, and helping my own mental health by keeping active. That's one of the key things as well. So please give what you can, and if you can't, please share it, just so that we're getting the word out. It's okay to talk. Remember that it's okay to talk. If you know where I am on social media, which is pretty much just Instagram these days, Farrand on Film, or even dropping a comment on this video. The link is in the description below. If you are able to donate, that would be fantastic. If you are not, please just share it far and wide, so hopefully we can find people who can do. That's a bit of a side note from me. Let's get back onto the awards. So, a bit of a different one that I've never really done, and I'm not really one for sort of splitting things up into genres like the Golden Globes do, but I saw an awful lot of horror films this year, so I wanted to sort of just put a bit of a spotlight on the genre and mention films that are possibly in my top 10, possibly fell out of my top 10, ones that I really enjoyed, but then just aren't getting that recognition elsewhere, and sort of do this category. So, my best horror category. Abigail, already mentioned how much I love that film. Alien Romulus, I mentioned it before when talking about Civil War and Kaylee Speeney, that she was great in Alien Romulus. It was a film that surprised me a lot. It was, especially from where we've come from with things like Covenant and Prometheus, that I wasn't a big fan of those films at all. I really enjoyed the first two Alien films. I think 3 has its issues, 4 definitely has its issues. But Alien Romulus, if you were to ask me, is up there with 1 and 2, Alien and Aliens, for the sort of best in the franchise. Bleeding, which again I have already mentioned and I've already given an award to for screenplay. Late Night with the Devil, which again I mentioned slightly before when it came to underrated, and again I will come back to when we look at David Dastmalchian's performance as Jack Delroy. And Smile 2. Now, Smile 2 is going to come up more prominently in a future category, but I really, really enjoyed Smile 2, and I think it was one of the most polished horror films that I have seen in a very, very long time, and one of the most efficient and well done horror films that I have seen in a long, long time. And I am giving the best horror to Smile 2. I think of the 5 there, it is just it's marginal gains at this point. If I was to rank them, I would probably go Smile 2, Bleeding, Abigail, Late Night with the Devil, Alien Romulus, but they are all extremely close together. Smile 2 has the best performance I have seen in a film all year. Naomi Scott's central performance, absolutely fantastic. Won't get any recognition from any other awards because it's a horror film and they don't, unfortunately. But I'm going to speak about that in a little bit more. So, the best horror, Smile 2. Best actor then. So, the mid-year winner was Zac Efron for The Iron Claw. Now, this is tough. So, John R. Howley for Bleeding. So, John has the central performance in Bleeding. Again, a very, very young actor, still a student, still sort of getting through college and graduating and doing all that kind of stuff. Now, he anchors the film incredibly well with a sort of sense of naivety, sense of innocence, but then also having to mature through the film and deal with a lot of things that are going on in terms of his family and even the things that he is seeing. And I thought it was an incredibly mature performance from John R. Howley. Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, he holds that film together. You know, the script is great enough as it is, and the directing is as well, and everything else around it. But his nuance in his face and his facial expressions and his body language and his movement and the sort of scenes where even he's just on his own and it's almost like you can read someone's thoughts and you can understand what someone's thinking just from a close-up of them alone. Stunning, absolutely stunning performance. David Dastmalchian for Late Night with the Devil, like I've already mentioned. Again, he's predominantly a character actor, predominantly a sort of a side actor, side character, if you will. And this was his sort of go on leading, and I think he absolutely smashed it. One of the best performances of the year. Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers. Again, he won the Golden Globe, and he was nominated for the Oscar. So again, we'll see where that one comes up. And Zac Efron defending the crown for The Iron Claw. Right. I'm going to give it to Ralph Fiennes for Conclave in a sort of mirror of what I think people are assuming is going to happen at the Oscars this year. That it seems to be between Adrian Brody for The Brutalist and Ralph Fiennes for Conclave. But it's a stunning performance, absolutely stunning. But the guy is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. If you've not seen Conclave, I highly, highly recommend it. But my best actor, 2024, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave. Best Actress, mid-year winner Kirsten Dunst for Civil War. So, Mikey Madison for Anora, a very late entry again. So Conclave and Anora, the last two films that I caught up with from this year, and she puts an absolute tour de force performance on in that film, and it's a really visceral performance. It's a really physical performance, and she does incredibly well. Naomi Aki for Blink Twice. I already mentioned Blink Twice before, but again, her central performance of being terrified of, I suppose, in the end, getting her own back, not to necessarily spoil anything, was again really, really fantastic to see. Kirsten Dunst for Civil War, you know, she won the mid-year. It's the best performance I've seen Kirsten Dunst give, bar none. She's stunning in it. And it comes down to this sort of level of stoicism, her not necessarily wanting to bend an ear or sort of give her heart out too much, wear her heart on her sleeve. She's very keeping herself in herself, and she's become jaded by the things that she's seen as a war photographer, especially in this American Civil War that is going on, and she doesn't really react too much to Kaylee Speeney's character's giddy optimism. So Kirsten Dunst for Civil War, Naomi Scott for Smile 2, already mentioned it. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. And Demi Moore for The Substance. Now, those five, stunning category. Stunning category. And I am giving it to Naomi Scott for Smile 2. If I am being totally honest, Mikey Madison for Anora was really, really close. Demi Moore in The Substance, just to sort of give her a props for a second, because I've realised I've not done that. I've not seen Demi Moore act that well, ever. And it was a really, again, visceral performance. There was a lot of, I would imagine, truth in it to her, about an aging person in the pop culture spotlight who has, people are telling her that she's had her time rather than her letting herself decide that she's had her time, and then only essentially replacing herself with herself, but another version of herself in the Margaret Qualley version of herself. And again, it was really great. But Naomi Scott in Smile 2, like if we're putting up performances in horror films as a sort of like, these are the ones that you need to sort of look at. You've got Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. You've got Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. You've got Naomi Scott in Smile 2. Like, she's done everything perfectly in that film, and she's going to get no credit or sort of recognition for it because it's a horror film, and for some reason the awards bodies are still sniffy. This one is not like it matters from a guy sat in a cupboard in Oldham. But Naomi Scott, Smile 2, my best actress 2024. Director then. So mid-year went to Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. Zoe Kravitz for Blink Twice. I thought Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut in Blink Twice was a very mature piece of filmmaking from someone who you would think has directed tons of stuff before, and she's not. And I'm only now interested to see where she goes from here. Luca Guadagnino for Challengers was there in mid-year as well. Alex Garland in Civil War was mid-year as well. Denis Villeneuve, Dune Part 2 was mid-year. And Sean Durkin for The Iron Claw was mid-year. Now, there are some of these that you will notice didn't come up in the screenplay category. So Dune Part 2 didn't come up in the screenplay category. And Iron Claw didn't, and Blink Twice didn't. I feel like the key to those films came down to the direction. That yes, you do need a good script to make a good film. But I think for Sean Durkin specifically, for The Iron Claw, a lot of the direction came down to the emotion of the characters, knowing when to do certain things, but then even him being able to direct wrestling sequences is something to be applauded because it's an additional layer to that sort of already difficult time of filmmaking. I'm going to make no bones about it. There's no change here. It's still Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2 is a triumph, is an absolute masterclass. It's of an epic scale, and I think we're going to look back at the Dune franchise and the Dune trilogy as something that was really, really special. And in my eyes, something that can rival Lord of the Rings. I think the highs of the Dune film so far have matched the highs of the Lord of the Rings film so far. And I would say the lows of both of them have as well. I'm really intrigued to see what we get with Dune Messiah. But my best director 2024, Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. And we get on to the big one, best film. So the mid-year winner was Challengers. So these are essentially my top 10 films of the year, not ranked in alphabetical order. Like I say, I'll probably do a best and a worst ranked, maybe at some point at the weekend. But 10 films, 10 best films. So Abigail, again, no surprise how much I love that. Honora, Bleeding, Challengers, Civil War, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Late Night with the Devil, Smile 2, and The Iron Claw. So 10 films that have already come up in various categories along the way in this video. And you might be thinking of where I'm going to go with this. Like Abigail, I love, but I feel like Abigail is my little soft spot pick in there. You know, it got most underrated. Honora was a film that surprised me that I enjoyed as much as I did do. But again, not necessarily up there with the best. Bleeding is the one that I really want to champion, especially when it comes to it getting a full theatrical release once it started to run the festival rounds in the US. Challengers won at the mid-year, still love it. Civil War, again, is a fantastic film. Conclave came in really late towards the end of the year, and I really enjoyed that as well. Dune Part 2, I've just mentioned, as a masterclass. Late Night with the Devil, really solid storytelling. Smile 2, anchored by that fantastic performance by Naomi Scott. And The Iron Claw is just a stunning depiction and portrayal of professional wrestling and a family tragedy. The winner and retaining the crown from the mid-year is Challengers. I've not seen a film hook me in as much as Challengers. It was close. My top three, I would say, are Challengers, Civil War, and Dune Part 2. When I rewatched Civil War, I was just in awe of it again in the way that it looks and all that, and the screenplay and the direction of it and the act and the performances and just the idea of it. But Challengers gave me so much in terms of pathos from the characters, empathy from the characters, that relationship and the twists and turns and the non-linear narrative, and being able to see where everything was going to go. The idea of this Chekhov's gun, the idea of this sort of callback and all that kind of stuff. It was basically a film. The narrative beats of a film that I love played out again and done stupendously. So my film of 2024 is Challengers. But before we go, most anticipated for 2025. Now, I've not given these the fancy sort of animation and all that kind of stuff. And I looked down the list and I basically picked out the 10 that, to me, should they actually still get released in 2025, I am incredibly excited for. So, 28 years later, that trailer looks so grim and bleak and just like, what were they going with this story? But I'm all here for it. And like, it looks amazing. Captain America Brave New World. Now, I have had a bit of a falling out with the MCU recently in that, I enjoyed Deadpool and Wolverine. I've still not seen the Marvels. I thought Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was good. But if you were to ask me, maybe it should have just ended at Endgame. But I'm intrigued to see where we go with Captain America Brave New World. I'm willing to give Anthony Mackie leading an MCU film on his own the time of day. I enjoyed Falcon and Winter Soldier, so I know where that story's gone. So again, hopefully this is us getting back to solid MCU for. Similarly with the Fantastic Four, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Fantastic Four, going all the way back to the Tim Story films. Not necessarily mentioning Fant Four Stick, but hopefully we're going to get something good out of this. Jurassic World Rebirth. If you know me, you know that I love Jurassic Park. You know that I love Jurassic World. That was just nostalgia-filled goodness for me. I even love Fallen Kingdom, which was a bone of contention on one of the tier lists that we did. I wasn't a big fan of Jurassic World Dominion at all. I feel like they sort of like scuppered that massively. Like, what's the whole subplot about locusts got to do with anything? But this now being in the hands of Gareth Edwards, and this essentially having a bit of a sort of new edge to it, I'm intrigued. Maybe I'm just a marketing man's dream, but I'll be there for it. The biopic of Michael Jackson's career. I've been a Michael Jackson fan of his music for such a long time, and the fact that someone is now sort of getting around to putting this story on screen, I'm intrigued to see. I think it's easy for people to sort of release certain things about Michael Jackson that are sort of in a negative view, but I think there are fair points where you can go back and see things in a positive view, especially with his career and the music that he produced. So I'm intrigued by that. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Is this the end of Ethan Hunt? Possibly, by the title it's judging it. The past few films, Dead Reckoning Part 1, even though it's now not a Part 1, it's just Dead Reckoning. And what was the other one? Fallout were stunning, and I think this is going to be exactly the same. Saw 11, I'm a sucker for the Saw franchise. I thought Saw 10 surprised me massively with Tobin Bell's performance last year, so I'm really looking forward to see what they do with Saw 11. The Ryan Coogler film, Sinners, that's got Michael B. Jordan in it, looks great. Edgar Wright's remake of The Running Man, or reinterpretation, if you will, of The Running Man. And the last big one for me, I've been waiting for a sequel to Tron Legacy for some time. Tron Ares, please, please, please be good. Please be good. I love Tron Legacy. I know not many people do, but it's visually stunning, and to me it really works, and it's a film that I enjoyed massively. So, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Those were my awards for the films of 2024. And on the screen now, as I leave this video, are my most anticipated films of 2025. Will they come up anywhere? Will any be massive disappointments? I sincerely hope not. Will any of them actually get released in 2025? I think some will, but some might end up getting pushed back into 2026 because that is just the way, but we'll see. So once again, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. If you can, please donate to Move for Mind and the challenge that I'm doing. The link is in the description below and on the podcast feed and all that kind of stuff. And it's on my Instagram at Farrand Film if you want to come and follow me there. Stay safe, look after each other, and I will see you very soon.